There is a photograph almost every American over 60 remembers without being able to name the date. 6 chairs, 2 rows of 3, a bright wall of color behind them, and a tall, silver-haired man with a long microphone standing just off to the side. For 1 decade, that little stage held the funniest people in the country. They were not movie stars, not exactly. They were something warmer than that. They were the friends who came into your living room every afternoon, made you laugh until you forgot the dishes in the sink, and then waved goodbye until tomorrow. The show was called Match Game. And if you grew up anywhere near a television in the 1970s, you did not just watch it, you lived with it. You knew which chair Brett Somers sat in. You knew the exact pitch of Charles Nelson Reilly's laugh. You had a favorite, and you argued about it. But here is the question that brought you to this video, the quiet one that sits underneath all that warm memory. Of all those faces, all those chairs, how many of those people are still with us today in the year 2026? The answer is gentler than you might fear and harder than you might hope. A handful of them are still here, well into their 80s, carrying the whole golden age inside them, like a warm coal, witnesses to a kind of television that simply does not get made anymore. And the rest have taken their final bow, one by one, across the decades since the cameras stopped. Today, we are going to walk that panel from left to right the way you used to watch it. We will remember who we lost gently, and without dwelling on the sadness. And we will sit for a few quiet minutes with the ones who are still here, because they deserve to be celebrated while they can still hear it. This is not a sad story. It is a thank you note, more than 50 years in the making. To understand what was lost, you first have to understand how big it was. When Match Game returned to CBS in the summer of 1973, almost no one expected what happened next. Within a year, it was the #1 daytime show in America. Households planned their afternoons around it. The premise was almost silly. Fill in a blank, try to match the celebrities, but the magic was never the game. The magic was the people, and the way they clearly adored one another. At the center of it all stood Gene Rayburn, the host, with that famously long microphone he swung like a band leader's baton. Around him sat the regulars, who became household names all over again. Brett Somers in the top center chair, sharp-tongued and glamorous. Beside her, Charles Nelson Reilly in his oversized glasses and ascot turning every answer into a tiny one-man play. And down below, Richard Dawson, the handsome Englishman, whose sly grin would soon carry him to his own empire on Family Feud. And then there were the women who rotated through that bottom corner chair, each one a delight. Fannie Flagg, quick and southern, and warm years before, she would write fried green tomatoes. Joyce Bulifant with her bright, girlish voice and her gloriously wrong answers. And of course, Betty White, already beloved, dropping by between everything else she was doing, decades before a whole new generation would fall for her all over again. It was by every honest account one of the happiest workplaces in television history. They taped 6 episodes in a single day, laughed through every one of them, and then most of them went out to dinner together afterward. The audience could feel it. You were not watching strangers compete. You were being let in on the best dinner party in America every single afternoon. That feeling is exactly what makes the rest of this story ache the way it does. It helped that so many of them were genuinely close off the air. Brett Somers and Charles Nelson Reilly were practically inseparable, a pair of best friends who finished each other's jokes. Several of the panelists, including Fannie Flagg, Joyce Bulifant, and Bill Daly, quietly shared something else in common. All 3 lived with dyslexia and found in that bright, fast-talking studio a place where their particular kind of mind was not a weakness, but a gift. The set was not just a job. For many of them, it was the warmest room they would ever work in. Time is patient, and it came for that panel the way it comes for all of us. Slowly, and then all at once. The first of the great pillars to go was Gene Rayburn himself. The man who held the whole show together with a microphone and a grin passed away in 1999 at the age of 81 at his home in Massachusetts. With him went the last word of every episode, the gentle sign-off the country had heard 10,000 times. Then came the year that broke the panel's heart. In 2007, within just a few months of each other, the show lost both Charles Nelson Reilly and Brett Somers. The two friends who had sat side by side teasing each other for 30 years left the world almost together. Reilly was 76. Somers was 83. To anyone who had watched them, it felt less like two separate losses and more like the closing of a single long conversation that we had all been lucky enough to overhear. Richard Dawson, the charming Englishman, left us in 2012 at 79. Patty Deutsch, who owned the number 6 seat with her wonderfully strange answers, passed in 2017. Marcia Wallace, the warm redhead so many also knew from the Bob Newhart show, died in 2013. And Bill Daly, the gentle comic from A Dream of Jeannie, took his bow in 2018. One by one, the chairs we knew so well went quiet. There were others, two faces from that rotating panel, who slipped away with far less fanfare than they deserved. Nipsey Russell, the rhyming poet of comedy, who could turn any answer into a couplet, left us back in 2005. Dick Martin, half of the legendary Rowan and Martin duo, passed in 2008. Orson Bean, the wry old storyteller, died in 2020. And McLean Stevenson, the restless cut-up who never could sit still in his chair, had gone all the way back in 1996. Each of them had been part of the family, even if only for a week at a time. And then on the very last day of 2021, the world said goodbye to Betty White, just weeks before what would have been her 100th birthday. She had outlived nearly everyone she once sat beside. In a strange and beautiful way, her long life became the bridge between that golden afternoon panel and the present day. When she went, it truly felt like the closing of an era. But she did not take the whole era with her. A few of her old friends were still here, and they still are. So let us turn now to the chairs that are not empty. As we sit here in 2026, several of the faces from that beloved panel are still very much with us. And the first name will make a lot of you smile. Fannie Flagg is 81 years old. The quick-witted young woman from the corner seat went on to write one of the most beloved American novels of her generation, Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and earned an Academy Award nomination for the screenplay. She has spoken openly over the years about living with dyslexia and about the depression she quietly carried, even in her brightest seasons. Then there is Joyce Bulifant, the bright, sunny voice, who gave so many gloriously wrong answers from the bottom corner. She is 88 now and lives quietly in Colorado. She wrote a candid memoir about a life that held 5 marriages, real heartbreak, and a fierce devotion to helping children with learning differences, a cause born from her own family. The woman the country once laughed with has spent her later decades quietly trying to make life a little easier for others. A few more of those familiar faces are still here as well. Elaine Joyce, the glamorous blonde who lit up the panel and later married the playwright Neil Simon, is 80. Gary Burghoff Radar from MASH, who slipped onto the Match Game panel between scenes of that other classic, is 82. And Bart Braverman, who sat in the guest chair in the show's early syndicated days, is 80 as well. The panel is not gone. It has simply grown quiet and grown old, the way we all do if we are lucky. There is something quietly moving about that list. These were never the loudest stars in Hollywood. They did not chase the spotlight after the show ended. Most of them simply went home, raised families, took up causes, and let the fame fade into something softer. And maybe that is exactly why they are still here, and exactly why we still love them. They never needed to be legends. They just needed to make us laugh on a Tuesday afternoon. And they did better than almost anyone ever has. What is striking looking back is how differently each of them used the years that followed. Fannie Flagg turned her wit inward and became a novelist, whose books sold in the millions, translated into more than 20 languages. Joyce Bulifant built a foundation and a memoir out of her own hardest experiences. Gary Burghoff stepped away from the spotlight almost entirely, choosing a quieter life of painting and music over the fame that MASH could have handed him forever. None of them clung to the past. They let Match Game be what it was, a wonderful chapter, and then they went and lived whole other lives. That perhaps is the secret the survivors quietly teach us. Fame was never the point. The applause faded, the studio lights went dark, and what remained was the same thing that remains for any of us: the people we loved, the work we were proud of, and the simple ability to keep finding joy. They did not survive by holding on tightly. They survived by letting go gracefully and by carrying the laughter forward into everything that came next. Think about what it means to be one of the last. To be Fannie Flagg or Joyce Bulifant, sitting in a quiet room more than 50 years later, holding the memory of every face in that photograph. They remember the laughter the rest of us only watched. They remember the dinners after the taping, the inside jokes the friend in the next chair who is no longer here to share them with. To be a survivor is a gift. It is also in its own way a weight. And yet watch them in their rare interviews now, and you will not find bitterness. You will find gratitude. They speak of those years the way you speak of a summer you never wanted to end. They knew even then that they had stumbled into something special, that not everyone gets a decade, where going to work means laughing with your best friends in front of the whole country. They carry that knowledge with a kind of grace that is rarer than fame and worth far more. And the proof that they got something right is everywhere, even now. Match Game has been brought back again and again. A primetime revival ran for years into this decade, and the format returned once more just last summer. Each new version reaches for the same lightning the original caught so effortlessly. Younger hosts, younger panels, brighter sets. And yet, ask almost anyone who remembers the real thing, and they will tell you the same gentle truth. The new ones are fun, but they are not home. Home was that panel, those 6 chairs, those particular people on those particular afternoons. So the next time that old photograph crosses your screen, 6 chairs, 2 rows of 3, a silver-haired man with a microphone off to the side, do not only mourn the empty chairs, honor the ones still filled. Honor Fannie and Joyce, and Elaine and Gary, who are still here, still carrying the warmth of that room into a world that has changed beyond recognition. They gave us our afternoons. They asked for almost nothing in return, and in the quiet dignity of their long lives, they are still teaching us how to grow old without losing the laughter. They were never the biggest names on the marquee. They were better than that. They were the people we let into our homes, the ones who felt like family by the time the credits rolled. Some have gone, a few remain. But every one of them, the lost and the living alike, left the same quiet gift behind the simple, generous, almost holy act of making strangers laugh. That is a legacy worth standing up for. So if you remember them, say their names out loud sometime. Tell a grandchild about the afternoon you laughed until you cried at a silly fill-in-the-blank. Because a memory shared is a memory that does not die. And as long as one of those chairs is still filled, and as long as one of us still remembers the rest, the show is not truly over. It is simply paused the way it always did until tomorrow.